The sun rolled slow and heavy over the wide plains, laying its golden hand across the land until every blade of grass seemed set aflame. The Ashford ranch sat still against the expanse, its wooden frame weathered by wind and dust, its porch boards groaning as though they remembered each storm that had pressed against them. Within that quiet stood a woman bent to her task, her back curved as though it bore the weight of all the judgment that had ever followed her. Clara May, 28 years old and unremarkable in the eyes of most, scrubbed at the porch floor with a rag dipped in lye water. Her apron was streaked with gray, her sleeves rolled to the elbow, hands roughened by labor no gentler than stone. And yet, from her lips slipped something incongruous, a sound the dust could not choke and the years could not tarnish. She sang, softly at first, a tune that quivered like a flame, then stronger as memory carried her into it. It was not a song for show, but for solace, born of long nights and hidden grief, of a childhood spent listening to her mother hum while mending clothes too worn to save. At her knee rested the only soul who seemed to hear her fully. Annie Ashford, for years old with curls like spun honey, clutched a ragged doll against her chest and listened with a wide-eyed reverence only a child could give. Her head tilted against Clara's arm, eyelids drooping as the melody cradled her. The song was a blanket, wrapping the child in warmth no fire could equal. Clara's voice faltered for a moment when she thought of how fleeting such moments were. She, after all, was only the maid, and children grew fast, and memories had a way of slipping into silence. Unseen, another figure approached. James Ashford, master of this land, returned earlier than expected from town. He was 32, tall, shoulders built from years of ranch work, his face sun-cut and serious beneath the brim of his hat. His boots fell quietly on the dust, though not by intention but by habit. Men who worked the frontier learned to tread careful. When he reached the porch, he stopped. For a moment he did not breathe, did not move, only stood in the half-shade of the post listening. The sound that reached him pierced a place inside he had long believed callous shut. He had heard music in saloons where laughter turned brash, in churches where voices sought heaven more out of duty than devotion. But here it was different. This was not for crowds. This was a song stripped of pretense, tender and unguarded, spilling into the quiet of his home as if the walls themselves had been starved for it. Clara did not see him until the last note caught on the air and her hand stilled upon the rag. She glanced up and in the doorway's shadow saw his figure. The rag dropped back into the bucket. She sprang to her feet, pulling Annie gently upright as though shielding her from a wrong discovered. Color rushed to her cheeks, and she kept her gaze low. "Forgive me, Mr. Ashford," she said, voice trembling with apology. "I did not mean to overstep." James stared at her longer than custom allowed, his jaw tightening, not out of anger, but out of an unfamiliar stirring he could not name. Her hair, usually hidden in strict pins, had loosened strands that glowed in the light. Her eyes, though downcast, held a strength he suddenly wished to know. He swallowed once and forced his voice steady. "You didn't," he answered, the words gruff yet oddly gentle. It suited the room. Clara blinked as if she had misheard. Annie tugged at her hand, piping in with innocent eagerness, "Sing more, Clara." But Clara pressed a finger quickly to her lips, silencing the child and herself. James turned then, stepping inside, boots echoing hollow against the floorboards. But even as he walked away, the song clung to him, haunting his thoughts like the echo of a church bell at dusk. The ranch ran on routine, and Clara folded herself into its rhythm, yet the weight of that moment lingered. Days passed, and she carried on with her chores, scrubbing, sweeping, tending to Annie. Yet each time James crossed her path, she felt the memory of his gaze on her like the brush of heat from a fire one dares not stand too close to. She told herself it was nothing, told herself he had only spoken to dismiss her shame, but the lie sat heavy. She was hired help, nothing more. The town made sure she never forgot it. When she walked into town a week later to fetch flour and salt, whispers followed her steps like shadows. Two women by the dry goods counter tilted their bonnets together and spoke in voices sharpened for her ears. "That's the maid from Ashford's place," one hissed, "carrying herself like she's something more." The other chuckled, lips curling mean. She'd best remember her station. A maid's hand scrubs floors, it don't reach for a rancher's heart. Their laughter pricked her skin worse than sunburn. Clara kept her head bowed, paid the shopkeeper quickly, and stepped into the glaring light outside. But shame burned within her chest until her breath came short. James learned of it that evening, when one of his men, eager for gossip, repeated the tale over supper. His eyes darkened, though he said nothing in front of them. Later, when Clara poured water into the basin for his wash, he caught her wrist before she withdrew. "Don't let their tongues cut you down," he said, his voice low, his gaze steady. "They don't know your worth." Clara stilled, her heart hammering, though she forced her tone flat. "Worth doesn't fill a stomach, sir. Best I keep to my place." She set the pitcher down with careful hands and walked away before he could answer. Yet their worlds pressed closer together as the days stretched into weeks. One afternoon, James tore his palm on barbed wire while mending a broken line. He cursed under his breath, but before he could bind it with a dirty rag, Clara appeared at his side, taking his hand firmly. Despite his protest, she cleaned the cut with water, tore a strip from her apron, and wrapped it tight. Her touch was efficient, not tender, yet the warmth of her fingers seared against his skin long after she let go. Another morning, he paused unseen at the kitchen doorway as Clara braided Annie's hair in the soft wash of dawn, the child giggling with delight. The sight rooted him, a yearning coiling in his chest like something dangerous. He had built his life on strength and silence, on cattle counts and land disputes, on the hard truth that men did not ask for softness. And yet here was softness, undeniable, reshaping the air of his home. Still, Clara kept herself guarded. Each glance she caught from him sent heat rushing to her face, but she reminded herself that such heat burned women like her to ash. Better to stay hidden, better to remain only what the world said she was, a maid, nothing more. The storm of shame broke at a neighbor's gathering. The widow, a woman the town expected James to court, filled her parlor with chatter and clinking glasses. Clara had come only to watch Annie, to keep the child from slipping underfoot. Yet, when laughter swelled in the corner, Clara's name was the knife within it. "Strange," the widow said, her voice syrup-sweet and venom-tipped, "how Ashford's maid sings lullabies as though she were mistress of the house." Snickers followed, bright and cruel. Clara's face burned. She held Annie tighter and wished the earth would swallow her. That night, once back at the ranch, she gathered her meager belongings. She could not remain where shame grew like weeds. James found her by the barn, a small bundle clutched in her hands. "Don't let them chase you out," he said, his voice uncharacteristically raw. "This is your place too." Clara shook her head, blinking back tears that would not stay hidden. "I'm a servant, Mr. Ashford. Nothing more. Don't make it harder by pretending otherwise." She turned before he could answer, walking into the night air with her pride in tatters and his silence pressing hard against her back. The following day, fate revealed its cruel hand. Annie fell ill, fever flushing her cheeks, body trembling beneath sweat-drenched sheets. Clara forgot her shame, forgot herself, and stayed by the child's side through the night. She sang until her voice broke, bathed her brow, whispered prayers she had not dared since childhood. James stood in the doorway, watching as lantern light painted Clara's tired face, as her hands trembled yet did not falter. He saw then the truth he had denied too long. She was no maid, no servant to be cast aside. She was the heart of his home, the strength that held his daughter safe, the quiet grace he had hungered for without knowing it. When dawn came and the fever broke, relief near shattered him. He found Clara outside by the well, her hands red from washing cloths, her shoulders sagging with exhaustion. She looked up warily, expecting reproach. Instead, he stepped forward, each word dragged from the depths of his chest. "Clara May," he said, voice rough, "you are not my maid. You are the keeper of my child's laughter, the keeper of my own heart, though I was too proud to name it." Clara's lips parted, breath shivering. "Sir, people will talk. Let them," he said fiercely, his voice breaking with the weight of truth. "I've listened to their voices all my life. Today, I listen to mine." With that, he knelt, not with grandeur, not with the arrogance of wealth, but with reverence. From his pocket he drew a silver ring, worn smooth by years, the last relic of his mother. He held it out, his calloused hands trembling. "If you'll have me." Tears streamed down Clara's face before words could form. She pressed a hand to her lips, then nodded, unable to hold back the sob that escaped. James slid the ring onto her finger, his hand closing over hers as if to seal it against the world. Annie, pale but smiling, toddled from the doorway, clapping her small hands. She ran to them, wrapping arms around both with a cry of delight, and in that circle of embrace the house felt changed. The sun set that evening in a blaze of rose and gold, laying its hand once more across the land. The ranch, weathered and still, stood as it always had, yet within its walls something had shifted. Clara's voice, no longer hidden, belonged here now. The shame of whispers could not touch what had been spoken true between them. And perhaps that is how love claims its ground in the Wild West, not with thunder or spectacle, but with a song hummed to a child, with the courage to defy the world's cruel tongues, with two weary souls daring to see each other whole. If you carry this tale with you, remember, you are never just the role the world carves for you. You are the song waiting to be heard, the worth waiting to be named, the love patient as dawn, ready to rise.